Breath of the Wild is a pretty wild game. I mean, even for a Zelda title, this game has giant luminescent flying dragons, demon-possessed statues, malicious goop, and of course ancient war machines that are rather proficient in the art of killing you. But of all the mysterious technology and magic, like the strange bloody skies that bring back the dead, one little side piece of the game has always captivated people's attentions, and that would be the Lord of the Mountain. Satori Mountain, to be precise. And if you don't know who or what or where I'm talking about, allow me to remind you. If you've ever been riding around, gliding, or otherwise adventuring in the western portion of the wide world of Hyrule, chances are you've looked to the west at some point and seen a strangely peaked mountain with what looks like a green glowing spire on top. What in the world, you probably asked yourself as you decided to creep up the mountain and figure out just what this alien light was coming from. Eventually, you stumbled across him, the Lord of the Mountain, also known as Satori. This horse-like, owl-like, flashlight-like being stands amidst a gazillion blupees, which all bear some pretty striking resemblances to Satori, what with the same glowing color heads and all. But that aside, I want to focus on who or what exactly the fabled Lord of the Mountain really is, as well as what its backstory might be. As you've probably already heard, the best theory out there in my opinion is that it was created in honor of the late Satoru Iwata, hence the similar name, who unfortunately passed away before Breath of the Wild was released. Now this theory is heartwarming and probably even true, but there's more to the story, you see. Breath of the Wild may be full of shoutouts and references to other games and commentaries on the Zelda community, but that doesn't mean these references and Easter eggs are all non-canon. The Lord of the Mountain has, a mountain named after it, is referenced by an NPC, and is even recognized by stable masters, meaning it has a canon influence on the world of Breath of the Wild. Well, since it's a canon being that actually exists in Breath of the Wild lore, that means we have to take what we know about it in-game seriously, like the fact that its in-game description details that legends say it used to be a sage who died on the lands it now protects. A sage, you say? Now, any fan of the Zelda franchise worth their salt knows that Zelda and sages go hand in hand. The 7 sages from Ocarina of Time, the 2 sages from Wind Waker, 7 sages from A Link to the Past, and 6 from Twilight Princess, etc, etc. And Zelda games tend to take their sages very seriously. So firstly, in order to speculate on what the Lord of the Mountain's backstory might be, let's first define what exactly a Zelda game means by sage. According to real-world classical philosophy, a sage is a person who has obtained a lot of wisdom. They're even called wise men in A Link to the Past, but their real purposes differ from game to game. Sometimes they're useful in sealing away Ganon, and sometimes they're useful in restoring power to the Master Sword. And other times they try to stab Ganondorf in the gut. But each time they make an appearance, they represent an element, and are normally a member of a race of people who complement said element. But this isn't always the case, as in A Link to the Past and Twilight Princess, they're all of the same race of just featureless people. So in summary, a sage in Zelda lore is simply an individual who is normally a part of a group that serves some divine purpose for the goddesses. Yep, that's basically it. So now back to the Lord of the Mountain. Satori was a sage. That much is known from its in-game description. It's also stated that it died on the land it now protects. And I'd wager it's pretty safe to assume this land that it died on is the Satori Mountain, what with the name and it being the only place Satori appears in the entire game and all. As fellow Zelda YouTuber Croton very expertly analyzes in his video covering the Satori Mountain significance, which of course I'll link to in the description below because, to be honest, I don't think anybody could do a better job at exploring the mountain's geographical and natural characteristics than he already did. We can fairly safely assume that Satori in life was a protector of the animals of the world who lived and died on the mountain. The reasoning behind these assumptions is that on nights when Satori appears, the area is littered with animals that have come to see the Lord of the Mountain, and when speaking to a certain NPC hunter named Quince from another part of the world, who previously had attempted to hunt the animals that appeared on Satori Mountain on one of these nights, it's revealed that the Lord of the Mountain was allegedly about to attack the hunter when he was saved at the last moment by his new best friend, a dog. We can only assume Satori was going to attack him because the hunter was there to harm the animal populace by hunting them. Now combine this information with the fact that there are no animal pens or cages on the mountain that we see in other parts of the world, and we can come to the safe assumption that Satori in life was a protector of wildlife and was revived to do the same in death. Now on to the next question. How exactly did the Lord of the Mountain die? And here's where I'm going to start speculating like crazy based off of the information we can find in game, so please let me know what you think and if you agree or feel differently after listening to what I've come up with. Among the animals and plants and strange glowing rabbits that appear on the mountain, we do find some enemies that appear at night, stall enemies. There is a stall nox and several other enemies like stall coblin, stall moblin, and stall lizalfos that are present on the mountain. I feel like that's incredibly significant in the Lord of the Mountains backstory, and here's why. Those are dead enemies, as in not alive in present day, as in enemies from some time past that are being reanimated most likely at the points where they died. What if this means that when Calamity Ganon and his forces swept Hyrule 100 years ago, Satori protected the mountain from the forces of Calamity's evil for as long as he could, until Ganon sent a then living super soldier Hinox and other monster foot soldiers to assault the mountain, ultimately killing Satori. He was a sage in life, which means he may have had powers or other means that he used to defend the animals on the mountain. Whatever Satori did before he died was obviously significant enough to get him reborn eternally as a protective spirit, watching over the nature of the mountain. With the meticulously positioned, powerful stall enemies, I feel like it's a very safe assumption that Satori defeated those enemies before ultimately dying on the land he protected. It's also important to note that on nights when Satori appears, the stall enemies do not, perhaps signifying their defeat at the hands, or rather the hooves, of the Lord of the Mountain. And you know, speaking of when Satori appears, isn't it a little bit strange that it isn't every day? Why does Satori only appear every now and then? Well, what if something has to happen for him to appear? Again, to continue my speculation rant, I think a big clue to the only so often appearances of the Lord of the Mountain can be found from what surrounds him when he does appear. You see, when Satori materializes in the mountain pool, not only is there an abundance of animal life on the mountain, but specifically surrounding the pool that Satori appears in is an army of little blue rabbits, also known as blupees. Now, why are they there? And have you ever wondered what their entire deal is? Well, let's think about it for a second. Not only do they look very similar to Satori, with similar antlers and heads and the exact same tone of luminescent green glowing from their bodies, but blupees are found all over Hyrule and are obsessed with rupees, hence their similar name. They congregate around the Lord of the Mountain when he appears and disperse when he isn't there. You know how the great fairies in the game have to receive an offering of rupees to be revived? Well, and I'm sure you can guess where I'm going with this, what if the Lord of the Mountain requires an offering of rupees to appear? What if the eternal cycle of the Lord of the Mountain's reincarnation involves blupees going out into the world and retrieving rupees to bring back to his resurrection pool so that he can then return to life and use his power to cleanse the mountain of evil as many times as he needs to? And could this also explain why we no longer see rupees in grass in Breath of the Wild like we used to in almost every other Zelda game? Because blupees are taking them to revive Satori. Or am I just crazy? Let me know in a comment below. And quickly now, before I wrap up the video, I wanted to cover the matter of which sage Satori used to be, or even still is. To be honest, I don't think this question is all that important. Sages don't necessarily have to represent the same 6 elements every time of forest, fire, water, shadow, spirit, and light. Just look at the Wind Waker, which just randomly introduced earth and wind after the game already acknowledges the original 6 sages. Could it be that what a sage represents isn't really all that important? Now, if Satori was one of these sages, an argument could be made that he was the Sage of Light, since Rauru, a previous and very well-known Sage of Light, was represented by an owl, and Satori and his blupees have owl heads. But this could also just be a picture of Satori's watchful nature, which owls are known to represent. You could also make an argument that Satori is the Sage of the Forest for obvious nature-loving reasons, or that he's the new Sage of Animals or rupees or literally anything else. It's for this reason that I don't think what sages represent is important, but rather what they do that matters the most. The Lord of the Mountain was and is an eternal protector of the wildlife upon Satori Mountain, the lone sage of legend. And to be honest with you, that's enough for me. But what do you guys think? Did the Lord of the Mountain die battling Ganon's monsters, or something else? And is he reincarnated by his blupees to cleanse the mountain over and over again for all eternity? Or something else? Let me know what you think in a comment below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like it up to get it moving around on YouTube. Also subscribe if you haven't already with that bell icon for much more juicy Nintendo stuffs to come. As always, huge thank you to my amazing patrons, of which I have 2 more additions. Welcome to Carry Meal Kyle, and Tim, and thank you so much for choosing to support the channel. If you're interested in getting your name up here at the end of each of my videos, feel free to check out the link in the description below for more info. Also down there are links to my social media pages, so please be sure to stop by and say hi. That's all I've got in this one, so do me a huge favor and have a great rest of your day. This is MaskedNintendoBandit signing out. Peace!